Hello and welcome to the News at 7, where we get to the heart of the day's stories and communities across Scotland. Tonight, a Scottish Government minister quits. Jamie Hepburn resigns after he was accused of physically assaulting the Conservative MSP Douglas Ross. The campaign to grow more trees in areas which have less of them often are most socially deprived communities. And we'll meet the dog who's helping children with their reading skills, now up for a top award. And we'll have all the sport with Lewis. What do you have for us tonight?
Well, Graham, it is League Cup quarter-final weekend, and amongst others, we'll hear from Rangers head coach Russell Martin and Aberdeen midfielder Stuart Armstrong as their sides eye much-needed victories.
Hello, I'm Graham Stewart. Welcome to the programme. The Scottish Government Minister Jamie Hepburn has resigned after being accused of physically assaulting the Conservative MSP Douglas Ross. The incident happened on Wednesday in the Scottish Parliament and became public yesterday. Mr Hepburn said in his statement he hadn't acted in accordance with his own personal code of practice. Well, let's speak to our political correspondent Phil Sim. Phil, is this a surprise?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, somehow this all started with a row about seagulls. Jamie Hepburn was quite upset with Douglas Ross raising gull control when MSPs were waiting to vote on some big justice reforms on Wednesday, and they got into it as they were leaving the chamber. The Tory leader, the former Tory leader, claimed to have been grabbed and sworn at by the Parliamentary Business Minister. Mr Hepburn initially said it was just a hand on the shoulder and some choice words, but after a day of negative headlines, he has now tendered his resignation. He says he doesn't want to be a distraction. John Swinney, the First Minister, has accepted that, regretfully, saying he believes it's just one slip from Mr Hepburn. Douglas Ross, meanwhile, is happy to have got a personal apology, but he's still not happy with what went down overall.
So it's the right decision. He's now resigned from government. But I do think it leaves questions over John Swinney's judgment, because all of the facts that led to Jamie Hepburn resigning were in the public domain yesterday, and I said that John Swinney should have sacked his minister last night. Instead, he decided to defend him and tried to ride this one out, but it was clear this was the only outcome that would be possible, given what had happened in the chamber on Wednesday.
Well, to come back to your question, I think this was a pretty inevitable outcome, as Douglas Ross says. He was pushing for a ministerial code investigation as to whether that had been breached. That is the sort of thing that the government really didn't need dragging on for potentially weeks. I think some in the SNP might have been keen to defend Jamie Hepburn, to circle the wagons. They like him, they don't like Douglas Ross, they feel that he's always out to wind folk up. But I spoke to one eyewitness with no skin in the game politically, and they were saying this was just ridiculous. I think it's pretty broadly accepted that it wasn't the kind of behaviour you can have in the workplace, and it's really just not what anyone at Holyrood really needs. Scrapping about seagulls is not the look that they want at a time when people are already pretty scunnered with politicians.
Phil at Holyrood, thank you. Scotland's becoming less tolerant to immigration, according to a former First Minister. Humza Yousaf, who became the country's first Asian and Muslim First Minister, says toxic debate about it has spread here from England. The MSP told a BBC Radio 4 documentary that Parliament hasn't engaged enough with legitimate concerns around the issue. It comes as new research also backs his claims. More on that in a moment. First, Mr Yousaf has been speaking to our political correspondent, Andrew Kerr.
Scotland is my home. Born here, raised here, educated here, raising a family here. Had the great privilege of being the First Minister of the country too. And never in my lifetime would I have thought that we would have, not an insignificant number of people protesting outside asylum hotels and accommodation, openly throwing Nazi salutes and holding banners that say "kill them all." And that to me betrays a really deeply toxic attitude towards immigration and asylum seekers and refugees that I haven't seen in this country before.
Do you feel there's an atmosphere of fear now?
Without a shadow of a doubt, there's an atmosphere, toxic atmosphere of fear amongst those who consider themselves to be progressive, but also amongst many minorities.
Is the atmosphere making home feel less like home?
Look, I think actually what we want to do is reclaim the flag, reclaim the Saltire, and make sure that nobody tries to push us out of our home.
But do you think that people do have a legitimate right of protest when perhaps some people feel that their communities are changing too quickly, too soon in a sense?
Look, first of all, of course people have a right to protest. I'll never argue against that right to protest, but they're targeting towards that the wrong target. I would welcome them to protest outside the Scottish Parliament, the UK Parliament, protest outside the local council building if that is what they wish to do. But targeting asylum seekers and refugees for a problem that they have not created is, I'm afraid, redirecting that anger towards the wrong place.
But South Lanarkshire councillor Ross Lambie, who's with the Reform Party, said that Mr Yousaf was part of the problem.
What Humza Yousaf has said is that the concerns of Scottish people is unfounded, is misplaced. And we don't think it's misplaced or unfounded for people to be concerned about large deposits of young men, undocumented, in hotels in our towns and cities.
Mr Yousaf talks about a sense of intolerance now in the political space. Do you think that you are intolerant?
Absolutely not. We think we're intolerant to terrible government mismanagement and the waste of billions of pounds of funds. Their inability to take action which actually works, which the public are crying out for. Any toxicity up here is actually being stoked by the likes of Humza Yousaf. In Reform, we believe this argument has absolutely nothing to do with race whatsoever. We think that if these hotels were actually stuffed full of young, white, French men, undocumented, there would still be the same concerns.
Well, I've been asking Sarah Kiambi from Migration Policy Scotland what her research suggests about attitudes to immigration in Scotland.
So what we can see from our representative survey of attitudes is that attitudes have cooled in Scotland since the first time we did the survey in 2023.
And why do we think that has happened?
So it's difficult to attribute any causes for that. What we can see in the data is that the attitudes have cooled, and what's interesting about it is that they cool more between 2023 and 2024 than they do in the 12 months after that.
So would you say that it was once true a few years ago that Scottish people were more in favour of immigration than, say, people in England?
I think it's difficult to have any directly comparable data that's taken at the same time. Attitudes change a lot over the course of the year, so you can get surveys, but they're at different times, and they're arguably not directly comparable. I think where there have been statistically relevant differences is that Scottish people tend to understand the need for immigration more than their rest of UK counterparts. That doesn't mean that they have a preference for it or that they like it better necessarily.
Do we know where they see it in their list of priorities? Is it a particularly pressing issue for them or not?
So until very recently, immigration hasn't come up as one of the sort of top priority issues when you track most important issues in Scotland, but that has changed quite significantly with that coming up into second place in the most recent survey that I'm aware of. But the difficulty with that kind of index is you don't know what it is about immigration people are concerned about. They might be concerned about immigration, they might be concerned about the discourse surrounding immigration. So it's very unclear how you interpret that kind of data.
Is this something, therefore, that our politicians need to address? Obviously, we have a Holyrood election coming up next year. Could this be an election issue?
I think what's clear in the Scottish data is that what you see is the impact of leadership in Scotland on views, and that more positive consensus politically means that Scottish people are more aware of the benefits that migration brings Scotland, both in terms of meeting labour vacancies, but also in terms of meeting demographic challenges. And I think that difference you do see in our data.
Sarah Kiambi there from Migration Policy Scotland, and you can hear more about Scotland and immigration in Scotland Wants You with Nick Earley on BBC Radio 4, 1:30 on Sunday, and you can hear it afterwards on BBC Sounds. Now let's get a roundup of the stories making the BBC News app in Scotland. And a drink driver who crashed his car, causing a teenage footballer to lose his legs, has been detained for 32 months. Aaron Patterson's car crashed into a wall in Macduff, Aberdeenshire in September last year. A contract's been awarded for a multi-million-pound flood protection scheme in Dumfries, which has divided local opinion. The White Sands area has seen more than 200 flooding incidents since records began. And almost 30,000 low-emission zone fines were handed out in Glasgow during its second year. That's down on the 38,000 which were recorded the year before. For more on all these stories, you can scan the QR code right there on your screen. That will take you to the BBC Scotland News app, where there is more for you, including a huge blaze at a former cinema building in Lochgelly in Fife. Now, deep fakes are images or videos that use artificial intelligence to realistically imitate a real person's likeness or voice. And there are growing concerns of being used to create false nude images. And now the victim of one of the first deepfake prosecutions in Scotland says she's been left feeling humiliated and betrayed after the man who doctored her likeness was given a fine. She thinks that crimes involving AI should have their own legislation and that penalties should be higher. She's been speaking to Laura Goodwin.
It makes you feel very small, very vulnerable.
Talk to me about when you first became aware that an image of you had been made.
So I was out with my friend and they told me just to be aware this has been sent to me, and it's a photo of you that had been taken off your Instagram and had been altered. They then proceeded to show me the photo on their phone, and to which I confirmed like it was a photo of me, but a photo of me fully clothed but had been altered, so it was completely naked.
What was your reaction when you saw that?
Quite humiliated, embarrassed. I also had a fear that, well, if he's been sent this, who else has this image? I would like to see it being treated with more severity. I feel like a new legislation should be made around AI-specific related crimes.
Well, Dr. Lindsay Shepherd is an expert in cybersecurity at Abertay University, and our reporter Louise Hosey sat down with her to learn more about deepfakes and to ask why it's becoming a bigger issue.
With the rise of AI and the likes of large language models, it's put the technology in the hands of the everyday user. A few years ago, we hadn't really heard much about large language models. Now, just about anybody can easily access them on the web.
Is it something that's more on your radar than ever before?
Yeah, definitely. Although these tools are supposed to be used for, correct, non-nefarious purposes, if they get in the hands of an attacker, the bad guys, they can be used inappropriately.
We know the crime is quite prevalent. We know it's relatively easy for people to do. Mm-hmm. How easy or otherwise is it to track those or trace back those responsible?
It can be quite difficult. Generally with cybercrime, because it's a World Wide Web, it can be difficult to figure out where the perpetrators are, in which country. You've then got jurisdictional issues as well. If it's a cloud-based service, well, where are the servers being held? It can be really difficult to track it down.
Are females more susceptible to this crime?
Typically, yes. When you look at research on like technology-facilitated sexual violence and image-based abuse, it is typically more aimed towards women.
And do you have any kind of insight into what's that impact has on those who are involved? Because we're talking about pictures that you or I could just upload, with family or friends.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a huge psychological impact. I mean, there's the shock of those images potentially being shared with others, friends, family, employers, and there's also there's the embarrassment. There's also not quite knowing who to turn to as well. To how do you go about reporting this, for example, and some women might not even realise it's classed as a crime, so they might not necessarily step up and report it.
Now, here's a question. Do trees make you happy? According to the Woodland Trust Scotland, they do. As well as improving our mental and physical health, they improve air quality and provide both shade and shelter. Yet many of our most socially deprived communities have barely a tree in sight. The conservation charity has now given every neighbourhood in Scotland a tree equity score that can target those areas that need it most. Our environment correspondent Kevin Keane reports.
It's virtually a treeless urban landscape. There might be one or two, but officially this area of Peterhead has no canopy cover at all. And with high levels of social deprivation, these streets have the lowest tree equity score in Aberdeenshire. But it doesn't have to be that way. So what is this?
So it looks like maybe there's a tree been planted here before, and unfortunately it's been lost. But wouldn't it be great if we could get another tree in this space? And you can just imagine, as it becomes a mature tree, being able to sit on this bench underneath the tree and enjoy the shade on a hot sunny day.
Some fruit trees have recently been planted, but more would be welcome.
Yeah, it would look a lot better to have a little bit more wildlife and trees about than cars and buildings.
Make a big difference for me because I love trees, and it's not too much trees around here actually.
The mortality rate's quite high with trees, that's a problem, but it would be nice to see more trees, certainly.
Not many miles away, and the setting is quite different. This is Ellen with Aberdeenshire's highest tree equity score, and you can see why. The tree-lined roads give this neighbourhood a canopy cover of 39%, and people here have noticed.
Well, obviously there's shelters for wildlife and birds, and they're good for people to see.
We have 2 red squirrel, we have roe deer, and we have probably about 40 species of birds visiting the garden over a year.
They're all right at a certain point, but there's far too much and they're not cutting back. The council aren't cutting back, but they need to be cut back.
The workers calculated that for tree equality across all our neighbourhoods, 2.5 million more will need to be planted in urban settings like here in Edinburgh.
So we've got a lovely hazel.
And the conservation charity behind the work says the benefits are real.
We know that all else being equal, people who live in areas with trees are healthier than people who live in areas without trees. So there are real impacts. So trees aren't just decorative, they're having a direct impact on our well-being and our health.
Planting so many trees would be a long-term goal, but the Woodland Trust says this allows them now to target urban tree planting where it's needed most. Kevin Keane reporting, Scotland, Aberdeenshire.
Well, still to come, we'll have a full look at the weekend weather forecast with Gillian, and we'll also tell you about the dog that's been taken into schools to help children with their reading. Intriguing? We'll tell you more about that later. First, time for sports with Lewis.
Thank you very much, Graham. Good evening there. Well, the League Cup takes centre stage this weekend, and there are 4 quarter-final ties spread between this evening and Sunday. First up, it's Kilmarnock versus St Mirren tonight, and you can listen to live commentary of that match on BBC Radio Scotland's Sportsound. Then take a look at tomorrow. It's Aberdeen against Motherwell, and then Rangers there taking on Hibernian. That's before Partick Thistle host Celtic on Sunday. Now, many eyes will be on Ibrox on Saturday evening to see if Rangers head coach Russell Martin can reduce some of the pressure he's under at the moment. He tried to relieve the tension in his players by taking them a hill climb and open water swim in Loch Lomond earlier this week, with the hope that it leads to a cup victory this weekend.
It's really important to win a game. We have a chance to be in a semi-final of a cup. It gives us a chance to really achieve winning some silverware, which is what we're here for. And it just gives us a chance to put a performance on the pitch that we actually like and we actually enjoy and wins us the game and something we can build from. So in terms of all the rest, I can't answer that, how significant that is, because like I said, I can't control it. What I want to see is a team that plays with the intensity and the togetherness that I see on the training pitch and I saw at the top of a hill after a long walk.
When you come to the club, opportunity to try and win a cup, and we are 1 game away if we can get through this one to get into Hampden, semi-final, 3 games away for potentially winning a trophy. Now the draw doesn't come any harder. It's a really difficult draw for us away from home, and the quarter-final at Ibrox is a really tough test. But it's 90 minutes of football minimum to try and get in the next round.
It's shaping up to be a fascinating one there. Well, on Sunday, there's a Glasgow derby as Mark Wilson's Partick Thistle host Brendan Rodgers' Celtic there, with the Jags looking for their first win against the Parkhead club in 30 years. Rodgers, whose side lead the Premiership on goal difference, says his team are finding rhythm and any immediate focus on supporter unrest is a sideshow. Wilson, who's a former Celtic player of course, told our reporter Andy Burke that he wants the Firhill men to give as good as they get against the League Cup holders.
I don't want us just to naturally give a ball back to Celtic for them to have another go at us, so there's got to be an attacking threat going the other way, and I think everybody that's coming here from a Thistle perspective and filling these seats behind us want to see us play that way as well. But again, I know realistically we are going to have to be a tight unit at times, but so important when we get the ball that we've got something going the other way.
Not all is well at Celtic at the moment. I think it's fair to say a lot of unhappiness amongst the fans going out the Champions League and maybe not happy with the level of investment in the team and the transfer window. Do you buy into the sense that it might be a good time to get them?
A good time to get them. Well, what have they conceded? 2 goals in 8 games across 3 competitions. When is a good time to get a team like Celtic? So, like, they've got so much quality, and even last week, you know, when it looks like it's just, you know, going to go Kilmarnock's way and they get a draw, they've got that power to keep going. So they've got so much quality. I don't think there is a good time to get this Celtic side. You know, Brendan Rodgers, of course, may be frustrated with what's happened behind the scenes, but I think when he looks at what's on the pitch, I think he'll be pretty sure that he's got a decent enough squad to win all these trophies domestically, and we're the next one in his way, and I hope we can put up a good fight.
Listen, that's a dream. We all want to get to Hampden, but we've got the hardest challenge in the country to go and do it. So, say one more relishing, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that maybe things can go our way on Sunday and we can give ourselves a chance.
Well, moving back to Saturday now, and what is a clash of 2 Swedes at Pittodrie as Jimmy Tillin's Aberdeen welcome Jens Berthelasku's Motherwell to the Granite City. The visitors have been praised this season for their attractive football, but they've not been able to turn draws into wins in the Premiership. As for the Dons, well, they're yet to win or score in the league. They hope, though, that summer signing Stuart Armstrong can help turn the tide.
I think it was a dream of mine when I was younger. Of course, I grew up here, I went to school here, I used to go and watch the games here. Some of the first professional games I watched were Aberdeen with my dad and my brother. And when I got older, I used to go with my friends. So it was a dream of mine. And then when I didn't quite make it, I was gutted, to be honest. So it's funny being back here and playing in the stadium that I used to watch all those years ago. So it's a nice feeling for me.
It's going to be fascinating to see him back as well. And remember, there will be lots more to read and watch on the BBC Sports Scotland website for you, including a championship match between St Johnstone and Dunfermline tonight at McDermott Park, and that is shaping up to be another fascinating one as well. So yes, Graham, football tonight, football Saturday and football Sunday.
And you can't say the football season has been boring.
You
That's
certainly
for sure.
cannot. There's always something to talk about, Graham.
And a long time to come as well.
Exactly.
Right, Lewis,
Thank
thanks
you.
much indeed for that. Let's talk about dogs. We love a dog story, don't we? In just over a week's time, we'll find out who's won this year's Make a Difference Awards. We've been hearing from some of the finalists, and tonight it's the turn of Ranach the dog, who's been helping kids read.
Hi, my name's Agnes and this is Ranach, my Labradoodle, and we've been coming into this school to work with the children in a Reading to Dogs group for about 7 years now.
My name's Kaylee, I'm the Support for Learning teacher here at Donnybristle Primary School. A typical session, Ranach comes in and she will listen to 4 different groups.
Each of them reads a page of the book while they pat Ranach.
She's very friendly and fluffy. Sometimes he sits on our lap and it's really funny.
When I read with Ranach, makes me more confident with my reading.
Ranach deserves this award because she's a lovely and calm dog.
When our children come in for the first session, they can be a bit shy, a bit quiet, but by the end of the 6 sessions, the reading part is a second thought to them. They're not focusing on it too much, they're just focusing on cuddling the dog.
The children, I think, need 3 hands, one to hold the book, one to pat the dog, and one to turn the page. It's just lovely to see it.
I nominated Ranach as a bit of a thank you for all the time she spent with us over the past 7 years. A huge amount of our children have really benefited from working with her.
So if Ranach wins this award, I think she'd need to get a very special treat. We might take her to a restaurant with a special doggy menu.
Now, BBC Radio Scotland will be gearing up for the weekend with a brand new programme launching tomorrow. Join our own Amy Irons and Stephen Mill for the Saturday show. Here's what's coming up.
Thanks very much, Graham. Well, as you can see, we are here in our brand new studio for the Saturday show, just doing all our final rehearsals and technical checks.
Yeah, we're nearly there. We're on air at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. If you're wondering what to expect, then obviously we'll have all the big talking points of the week. We've got some big guests as well, including tomorrow, Robert Carlyle is on the show.
Very excited about that. And we will be building up to all the big sporting fixtures of the weekend. We are joined by former Rangers and Scotland striker Stephen Naismith. He is going to be with us on the show and we'll be playing plenty of great music as well. So we will chat to you tomorrow morning at 9.
Yeah, that's over on BBC Radio Scotland. If you don't catch it there, it will be available on BBC Sounds. Right, time for the weather forecast. Gillian, how is it looking?
Well, it's been a bit of a mixed bag today, Graham, but it has been mild for all of us. That's set to change over the weekend. We're introducing chillier conditions. North was best today in terms of sunshine. Lovely blue skies over Plockton earlier. For central Scotland, a bit more in the way of clouds, some grey skies over Eaglesham. It's been a mix of showers and some sunny spells as well, but really muddy conditions over the borders where we've had some persistent and heavy rain. Bit more of that to come over the weekend, because if we take a look at the pressure chart, well, you can see we have that waving weather front that's been bringing that rain to southern Scotland. It sticks around through tomorrow and then it clears away, opening the door to chilly northerly winds for Sunday. Then into next week, high pressure building in and settling things down. But into tomorrow, we have a yellow warning of heavy rain for southern Scotland, still down to the proximity of that weather front. That covers East Lothian, the borders, Dumfriesshire, and it's valid right through until Sunday morning. But tomorrow we'll start the day with some rain in the far south. Otherwise, it's a dry start. Could be a few pockets of mist and fog. Quite a cool start to the day as well. And we'll have some showers pushing into the far north on brisk northerly winds. And as we head through the day, we'll continue to see that mix of sunny spells and showers for most of the country. But to the south, we'll still have that weather front never too far away, producing some persistent and at times heavy rain for Dumfries and Galloway and the borders. Temperatures certainly down on today, between 12 and 16 Celsius for most of us, and feeling quite chilly in exposure to that breeze. There could be a touch of grass frost tomorrow night, because into Sunday, and we're in that chillier air with those brisk northerly winds, lending a cool feel to things and bringing plenty of showers to northern Scotland, especially during the morning. A few of those could be on the heavy side. For central and southern parts, lots of dry and bright weather on Sunday, some decent sunny spells, but temperature-wise only about 11 to 14 Celsius, and once again it will feel chilly in exposure to that breeze. Now into next week, and for Monday, high pressure becomes established, so lots of dry, settled weather to come. We'll have a little frontal system just sneaking in around the top of that high, so bringing some patchy rain to the far north, but otherwise it's dry, cloud tending to increase through the day, but winds certainly lighter than they have been. And into Tuesday, high pressure is hanging on. It's centred right across us, so plenty of dry weather, some bright and sunny spells, and back up into the mid-teens. Graham.
Very autumnal. Thank you, Gillian. That is it for tonight. There's more news at 7 across the weekend. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you later. Bye-bye for now.